Well, hey there folks, welcome back to the farm. Thanks for joining me this morning. Today is all about confessions on the homestead. So, first confession, let's get right to it. Our compost pile stinks to high heaven. My goodness, it is, and there's only a couple reasons why this can happen. Two very specific reasons. One is rot. So rot happens when the pile gets compacted. As you can see, it has started to shrink and it gets anaerobic. But I've just put one fork in there. There's quite a bit of steam coming off it, so the pile is heating. So that's not indicative of an anaerobic pile. The second is excess release of nitrogen by way of ammonia. So ammonia is NH3. And so that's exactly what's happening here. By the way, good morning, Mr. Rooster. So there's a lot of chicken manure in this compost pile. There's a lot of food scraps. And so we're kind of off balance a little bit here. Especially, I think with fluctuating temperatures coming out of the chicken house with all this, adding a lot of other materials. So what I'm gonna do today, as you can see, we built a two compartment compost bin. So I'm gonna fork all this material over to here, get lots of air fluffed up in there. I'm gonna add a little bit more moisture, and then I'm gonna add a little bit more material to the top. Now, one of the things, if you don't want your pile to compact, you can add layers of like hay or straw in between and make like a lasagna mix. I won't be adding straw today, but I will be later on in the year when we get it out from the where the bulls are bedded down. Right now it's pretty frozen, but if you're in a warmer climate, that would work very, very well. I don't want to use hay simply because this is going to go directly for garden mulch or garden compost, sorry. And if it doesn't heat fully, I don't want to have to deal with the grass seed. The straw's already had the seed separated when it hit the combine, right? Okay, so I have the compost pile completely moved out of here now and into the second bin. And you can see I've slid the pallet over that sits on the top. And there's just this little opening here. So originally when we put the compost pile, it was kind of open like this. It was actually over on this side of the chicken house. But it was like, it was like a magnet for crows and magpies. And so we put this pallet just on the roof just to prevent anybody from looking up from above and saying, ooh, snacks. And even if they did come down to ground level, they're less inclined to go in and fly into there to peck and scratch and look for sources of food. Whereas the chickens will gladly climb this pallet ladder up, and they'll hop in there and they'll turn that compost and they'll peck and they'll scratch. They'll look for bugs, they'll look for food scraps. It makes this wonderful, rich compost. All right, so we're done with the compost for a while. It's time to move on to the next confession of a homesteader. You ready for this? It's a big one. We're not off grid. Are you still with me? You're still with me? Okay, yes, we're not off grid. Originally in 2017 when we moved here, we were off grid for a period of time. We lived in our RV, like our holiday trailer. And then we set up basically survival priorities. So unbeknownst to many of you, I am a former survival expert. I say former because I've gotten fat and happy and lazy in my later years, and I've just chosen to take a route of comfort as opposed to do things the hard way or the long way. So yeah, actually, if you've heard of Bear Grylls, yeah, I taught him everything he knows. If it weren't for me, he would still be going downhill to drink out of rivers and lakes and stuff instead of getting to higher ground and drinking his own urine. I taught him that. All jokes aside though, seriously, on the survival side, there's gonna be something called the rule of threes that you're gonna wanna look up if you're trying to build a homestead. It applies to whether or not you're living in the bush or even your urban homesteading, in precedence of priorities. So first thing you wanna get is what? Well, okay, I can survive how long without air? 3 minutes. Well, air is just kind of everywhere, right? But in the city, it's not very clean. So get yourself to the countryside. Absolutely. Fresh air, awesome. 3 minutes, right? How long can you survive without water? 3 days. 3 days, not a very long time. So once we were out to the country, one of the first things we did was drill the water well. We were actually hauling water from a static water source. We got a dugout at the bottom of the hill. It's not really great water because ducks swim in it. But so we drilled a really good water well. And then after that, well, how long can you live without shelter? Well, believe it or not, 3 hours. So 3 hours isn't a very long time. You think, okay, I go outside all the time for way more than 3 hours. But 3 hours in harsh conditions, you could get hypothermia, you could get sunstroke, all kinds of, heat stroke, all kinds of bad stuff can happen to you in a very short period of time. So work on some shelter. So that's where we lived in the RV. We built the shop, and subsequently we built the house. You'll notice we haven't talked about food yet. How long can we go without food? Well, 3 weeks. So it's actually on the longer side. It's, you're gonna get hungry way before you get thirsty, more than likely. So oftentimes, whether it's in a wilderness situation or whether you're talking like a big picture about homesteading, we focus a lot of our efforts and our energy into getting food. But the reality is, if we don't have the infrastructure or we're not equipped to manage it, we're going to expend a lot of energy and have a whole lot of waste. So we are now year 4 into our homesteading journey. Last year was the first year where we actually raised half of our own meat and a small portion of our vegetables. I think we had, I had big ideas of how much vegetables we were going to grow, but poor ground conditions, poor soil prep, things like that led to some reduced yield. And those are some important lessons to learn, especially when you're thinking about how much energy you're going to expend versus how much return you're actually going to get. And last but not least, and quite often this one's overlooked, and even in today's society, it might be kind of frowned upon, if not illegal, is how long can you live without human interaction? 3 months. 3 months without human interaction, you'll probably be clinically insane. So once you've got your water, once you've got your shelter, you're out in the countryside enjoying the fresh air, invite some friends over. You'll have a great time. Don't isolate yourself. Don't be an island on your homestead. It's gonna mess with your head and you'll get a little bit crazy. By the way, best tool on the homestead or in the bush is a good knife. You're gonna want one just like this on the homestead. You don't want to take this to the bush. You're probably not going to survive more than a day and a half with something like this in the bush. You're going to want a full tang knife where the blade actually integrates into the handle, goes the full length so it doesn't bust. You can use it to chop vines, split wood, dig holes, do all kinds of stuff. But a good folding pocket knife, very, very handy on the homestead. Anyways, the last confession I have to make today is, well, sometimes I name YouTube videos and it has absolutely nothing to do with the majority of the content in the video. So we have one video called Poop-Free Nesting Boxes, and it's a 10-minute video, 8 minutes of which has nothing to do with poop-free nesting boxes. In fact, it has nothing to do with chickens. I talk about sheep, and I talk about pigs, and I talk about gardening, all this other stuff. And then the last 2 minutes, I make reference to the 1x4 boards that we have across our nesting boxes. Well, that video, as clickbait as that title is, has gotten almost 800 views, which I'm thankful for, but I feel kind of bad because I think there's a lot of people clicking on it, and I don't know if they make it to the end to actually get the meat and potatoes out of it. Anyways, titles aside, I do have a lot of fun making videos and bringing everybody along for the ride. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, outbursts, anything like that you'd like us to weigh in on, drop them in the comments section down below. While you're down there, if you haven't already, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. It's free. It's absolutely free. Watch a couple videos. If it's not for you, that's fine. Go ahead, click that same button. You can unsubscribe. It'll be like it never happened. But I'm going to leave you for now. I'm going to go get myself a cup of tea. So I hope you have a fantastic day. We'll see you tomorrow.